Greetings and welcome to Phantom's Edge. This will be Chapter 18 of this reading. The Chief Warrant Officer 5 was standing guard at the docks, waiting with his team for the final bureaucracy ship to enter the area. He waited for about an hour, then noticed what looked to be of a bureau banner atop a sail on the ship. However, the vessel itself was badly damaged. Nearly sinking with the massive holes in its hull, the Patronage 3 came to crash against the shoreline next to the docks. Part of the stern was on fire, the sails were torn to shreds, the wheel halfway broken off, and a few crew members were hung over the sides as they lay dead before those around them. The officer ordered his subordinates to gather what little they could of the wreckage before it was taken by the sea, while also salvaging for any survivors. They came across only a single soldier, who was quickly nearing his end. He spoke of the horrid tale of what happened, then shortly afterwards passed away. With all ships accounted for, the Chief Warrant Officer 5 and his men returned to headquarters to give out their report. The High Officer himself walked over to Fleet Admiral Pre and whispered the news of Jacqueline's vessel. He asked if she was within the fallen soldiers, but found that was not the case. The Lepore waved the soldier away to have him stand amongst the other warrant officer ranks. Then the Fleet Admiral stood to motion for the podium. Pre waited for a moment so everyone could quiet down, then said, "Ladies and gentlemen, dark times have fallen before us. It seems that neither of the other countries wishes to stand at our side. In fact, the totalitarians of Amalek and the Empire of Mongoma are actually against us." Most of the soldiers started to speak amongst each other in concern, then quieted as the Fleet Admiral continued, "A war is what is to come if their madness is not stopped. They think we can be at peace if everyone just stays silent within their own borders. Well, I find that to be demeaning of peace and a disgrace to freedom." Admiral Chief Cornelius moved from his chair and went to stand at his superior's right side, while he added, "None of our spies have reported back since the demon infiltrated the vicinity of our bureaucracy headquarters. We believe our comrades have all been killed off by our enemies, who are now planning to take over what rightfully belongs to us on Philae." At that point, Vice Admiral Edison stood and said, "We must not let Philae fall and be ruled by such tyranny of either the Empire or the totalitarians. We must stop them at any cost out at sea." The soldiers amongst their superiors raised their right fists to the sky and simultaneously called out, "Freedom prevail!" When they lowered their arms, Pre said, "People, the time to act is now. We must stop this meaningless bloodshed once and for all. My brother's insane ideals to have a free world in the hands of many will never come, no matter how hard he believes as he keeps himself locked in the dark on his precious isle of Mongoma." Fleet Admiral moved a few pieces of paper before him on the podium, read it in silence, then looked back at his subordinates and continued, "Our last report indicates that the pirates were to meet up with Fuhrer I Hecklin and Emperor Phytogras on the Isle of Amalek, where we believe they will hold a meeting as well to discuss about fighting against the bureaucracy. However, by the time they ship out, we shall have already set sail to counter them in the vast ocean. We will stand our ground and not let them tread past our blockade to Philae." "If I may, Admiral," Captain Hyton said as he raised his right hand near his head. Pre looked over and nodded his head. Then the feline lowered his arm and continued, "My men are best suited for land patrol and as sniping units. Not to say the blockade will fall, but if the pirates do somehow manage to get through, I can have my men easily pick them off before they reach the city limits." Vice Admiral looked over at his Lepore leader and said, "That may work, but we'd need more troops to compensate." Pre glanced down at the podium as he pondered for a second, then looked back at his soldiers and said, "Warrant officers will be responsible for gathering as many new recruits into battle for Philae if the blockade should fail to stop the pirates at sea. Any man with a son is to be drafted immediately, while any child over 15 must go if a sibling is present to continue the family gene. Women may join to stand for their country, but only if willing and only as nurses for our doctors, unless otherwise noted in records with skills in combat." "Yes, sir," all warrant officers agreed. Vice Admiral Edison glanced at those around him as he said, "A little note. Do not engage full combat with previous Captain Gregory. The man is a traitor and a dishonored member of my family. If discovered before me, I want any who find him to bring him to me alive, so I may personally deal with his disloyalty." "Sir," subordinates responded. The admirals continued with their meeting and discussed the strategy they and their followers were to take by land and sea. They were going to rebuild their lost patronage ships and reinforce their later ones, along with remaking the Andromeda for battle. With their new recruits working first to build these ships, it wouldn't take more than a few days for they could be supplied with whatever artillery the bureaucracy had at hand. Early in the morning, on the second day to ready for war, Fleet Admiral Pree went to check in on his personal and most powerful battleships in all of Philae. One of these massive ocean drifters was titled Armageddon. However, it was never actually used other than once to destroy a pirate vessel. It accomplished its mission with ease, having taken no severe damage itself and using very little ammunition to sink its foe. Second only to the Armageddon was the Apocalypse, nearly equal to its brethren. It too was never used, never even tested. It was created the exact same way as the Armageddon, but the cannons were never fired and it had sunk no ship of any kind. Prey went to check the ships with his crew, but was halted when a warrant officer came to his attention. The soldier gave his superior a box with no inscription as to who it came from or even indicating that it be addressed to the fleet admiral. Lepore accepted the box, then the warrant officer saluted the superior before heading off. Prey opened the box to find another within it. He stared down at what appeared to be a jewelry box, brown with golden markings around its edges and no bigger than one's own fist, with slight water damage to its exterior. Lepore took the item out and tossed the package aside, opening the jewelry box to find it had a gentle tune to play. Strangely, there was nothing inside that resembled jewelry, only a piece of paper. Fleet Admiral was about to take out the note and read it, but stopped and closed the box halfway through its song when Vice Admiral Edison walked aboard the Armageddon vessel and said, "Sir, everything is in order. We can disembark all ships before noon." Prey put the box inside his jacket and said, "Very good, Admiral. I had expected nothing less of you." As the two stepped off the ship, Edison asked, "Did I intrude on something, sir?" "No, not at all. I was just looking at something. Nothing important." The commanding soldiers of each ship were scheduled to regroup once both resupplying and final inspection was done. They headed back to the meeting hall, where Fleet Admiral ordered all ships to sail only halfway for Amarik. They were to only stop any vessels that tried to enter bureaucracy waters and, if necessary, destroy them. Unfortunately, the Lepore was not going into battle this day. He instead resigned from his post and had Cornelius promoted, who bumped up Edison to give Josephina Vice Admiral rank and commanding officer of the Apocalypse. Standing in his private quarters, Pree still wore his uniform as he stood watching over the ships as they sailed off to intercept the enemy of the bureaucracy. He gazed out his bedroom window, the jewelry box placed at the windowsill. The box was not open, so it played no tune. The note was untouched, with the Lepore only wondering where it came from and why. This concludes the reading of Chapter 18. Thank you all for watching and listening. If you like what you've seen and heard, be sure to check out my other two novels, Lore of the Endowment and Ryu the Demon Slayer. Link will be in the description below. Other than that, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you again next week, reading Chapter 19.